Something deeply interesting is going on right beneath our noses, and virtually nobody has noticed it yet. But if you're keen enough and pay attention, you might just catch the wave and ride it before it explodes into a financial tsunami, the likes of something we've never seen before. And that's because many believe that for the very first time, crypto is actually decoupling from traditional markets, i.e., stocks. Now, throughout the years and even up until recently, stocks and crypto have been highly correlated. And that's because they're both considered to be too risky to hold during volatile periods of time by fund managers and investors. Here we have the price action on Bitcoin in the red and green, and in this pink we have the S&P 500. Down below on the blue line, you can see that when we're down below in this range right here, this is a negative correlation, and up here at the upper portion of the range, whenever the line is consistently touching or hovering above here, we are highly correlated, which means they are moving lock in step. And over the years, it's consistently been like that, except for the bull market rally from the bottom or the lows of January 2023, and more specifically right now. In other words, it actually seems like it's changing this time around. And Robert Kiyosaki, the man behind one of the best-selling business books of all time, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, who touts a net worth of over $155 million and has over $1 billion in real estate holdings, holds the same opinion. However, he is stating that one of the biggest market collapses in history is just on the horizon, and that you should be accumulating commodities like gold and silver, and also digital assets like Bitcoin, which could make you a very rich person. But if you wait, it may be too late, because we are going to see a giant crash. Now, if you've been watching the videos on this channel for some time now, you'll know that going back to November of this year, XRP has consistently been outperforming virtually every other major digital asset in the entire crypto market, and arguably is very correlated to Bitcoin. In other words, if Bitcoin pumps to new highs, then this gives XRP room to breathe and also pump for new all-time highs. And so far, we've seen the S&P and a lot of other markets correct. However, Bitcoin and XRP were actually leading, corrected sooner, have bounced harder, and it seems that it's extremely likely the entire crypto market is also going to follow. In other words, we might be experiencing the great decoupling. And so far, this data seems to be backed by Crypto Rover and even Coin Bureau, as crypto is breaking away from the stock market. Now, typically, I don't mind much or pay too much attention to news on social media, because anyone can say anything. But through the entire month of April, this seems to consistently be the case. While major indexes fail to break above prior supports, assets like Bitcoin and XRP have not only maintained their strength on dumps, but have actually been breaking for new range highs. This is typically indicative of strong underlying demand from investors, and just a few days ago, some more signals were flashing that bulls were becoming even more bullish and added $437 million to their Bitcoin positions, which will likely send Bitcoin flying to above $110,000. And believe me, folks, I've seen this play before. Right now, XRP is currently the strongest of all major market cap cryptos, just in terms of its price action and how well it's been holding its support. This could lead XRP to break into new all-time high territory and easily smash that $5 target. So we'll be diving into the video now, and as always, if you're feeling blessed and bullish, comment 777, and if you're going to be the wealthiest person in your family tree, smash the subscribe button. Hello and welcome back to the channel, my friend. If you're new here, my name is Paul, and you can find me on Twitter or X at PauliDeFi, PauliDeFi. Now, earlier in the month, we did see something quite interesting happen, as people were consistently calling for lower lows on all markets, both crypto and stocks. Yet in a single day, we saw $3.25 trillion wiped out from the US stock market, while $5.4 billion was added to the crypto market. And yes, $5.4 billion is definitely enough to move the crypto market. It is a far smaller market, which is usually why you'll see far more volatility. Now, that said, we're going to dive into a lot in this video. We're going to be talking about the head of digital assets and watching a video from the guy over at BlackRock. We're going to be talking about Monica Long, the president over at Ripple, and what she recently shared with a product advancement. We'll be talking about this tweet from Robert Kiyosaki, who is talking about how in 2025, credit card debt is now at all-time highs. We are having U.S. debt at all-time highs. Unemployment has consistently been rising. 401ks are losing. Pensions are being stolen. And the USA may be heading for an even greater depression. Many people believe that the stock market is going to continue to decline while money is going to flow into digital assets like Bitcoin and XRP. Now, it's safe to say that Robert Kiyosaki is typically a bit more bearish on the grand scheme of the global markets, and more particularly the US markets, constantly calling for recessions and even potentially depressions. Over and over and over, he talks about how you should always buy gold, silver, and Bitcoin, and how he's continually repeating that advice today. This would lead me to believe that if Bitcoin is going to do well, the entire crypto market is likely going to do well also, because a lot of that money tends to flow into altcoins, one of the strongest altcoins being XRP. In other words, if Bitcoin is going up, you can reasonably assume that XRP is also going to go up, but you want to do it sooner rather than later, because if it's too late, you will already miss much of those gains. Now, based on all of this information from Robert Kiyosaki, he does share a Bitcoin price prediction, and he says, I strongly believe that by 2035, one Bitcoin will be over $1 million, gold will be $30,000, and silver will be $3,000 a coin. If this truly did happen and we see $1 million Bitcoin, then that would be a 991% gain from today's prices, which when I do a comparative analysis on something like XRP, it will likely gain even more considering the market cap is far smaller. And again, I know there are a lot of people that are XRP holders that don't believe market cap matters, not going to have that current argument, but I would say at minimum, I could see something like XRP hitting at least $34 to $39. However, it's important to pay attention to that time horizon. He's talking about 2035. Now, the reality is nobody knows what the future is going to look like. You don't know, I don't know. Robert Kiyosaki definitely doesn't know. Since we don't know, we can reasonably assume that prices are going to be higher in the future than they are right now, which leads me to my point. What actually comes next for XRP and Bitcoin? Well, realistically, if we are experiencing this decoupling, and we're going to watch a video here very shortly, then yes, things are looking really good for XRP and crypto. And I think XRP is getting ready and primed for an explosive breakout to the upside, as this is a new intermediate term uptrend. All we need to see is a break above 260 and arguably above that $3 range. And by the way, at $3, we have a total confirmation that this thing is likely going to go for new highs, and that new high price point is likely going to be at least $5, as that is a whole and round number, which would still be about 127% gain from today's prices. And the reason I believe something like this could easily happen here in the near future is because I don't think the bull run is over just yet. I just think it was extended because of the uncertainty surrounding the Trump tariff war. However, through all these violent corrections in the stock market, XRP seems to be holding its ground, and this is totally true. We're looking at a very long-term time frame here, going back to basically 2013 and 2014. And so if I did the exact same thing on this chart and we go back to that weekly time frame, you can see that consistently we are holding a major support at the prior all-time highs going back to January of 2018, yet again in April of 2021, and here we are present day, April of 2025, holding the range. Now, really quickly before we dive into that video from BlackRock, if you haven't had a chance, head on over to bullrunners.com/altcoin secrets. You can find that link in the description or the pinned comment from the Bull Runners below. All you have to do is click on that link, and then when you see this page right here, click this button, enter your email in order to get that book sent directly to your inbox. This is going to help you to become a crypto millionaire. And again, we can't guarantee that you're actually going to become a millionaire. You do have to put in the work and have enough working capital, right? Results may vary. However, this is all the stuff we've taken and picked up over the years and learned in order to help us pinpoint explosive cryptos before they actually take off. This is the type of stuff that they literally will never teach you in schools and you'll find nowhere else. I spent a lot of time putting this thing together for you guys, and so I hope you enjoy it. And again, it's absolutely free. Just click that link, enter your email, and we'll send it directly to your inbox. Now, on that note, Jay Jacobs is the dude behind BlackRock and their digital assets arm. He was recently on the Squawk Box talking about how Bitcoin and crypto have officially now decoupled from tech stocks. Let's have a listen. And remember that BlackRock knows a lot more than most people about what's actually going on in markets because they manage $12 trillion in assets. They are the largest asset manager on planet Earth and have access to virtually more data and smart people than anyone else. So they must know what's going to come next. And here's what Jay Jacobs says.
Crypto is now about to decouple from U.S. tech stocks. Many are talking about sell U.S. assets kind of behavior in the global markets. Do you think this is the moment?
Well, crypto over the long run is decoupled from U.S. tech stocks. I think what you have to look at is, are you looking on a short-term basis or are you looking over a longer-term basis? You know, over a short-term basis, you can see all types of different assets have rising correlations to each other. And in fact, if you look at the last few weeks under more market uncertainty, you've seen everything from stocks and bonds to crypto trading with higher correlations. But if you zoom out, you tend to see the kind of longer-term fundamental thesis of something like Bitcoin really drive it to behave differently than traditional assets. You know, the long-term correlation between U.S. stocks and Bitcoin is more like 0.2 or 0.3. It's a lowly correlated asset. And it's because what drives stocks, which tends to be things like higher growth, higher certainty, lower geopolitical risk, many of those things actually are kind of opposite drivers for Bitcoin. Bitcoin thrives when you have more uncertainty and are looking for something that's going to behave differently. So fundamentally, this should behave like an uncorrelated asset. And I think as we continue to see more time play out in this uncertain environment, you will see a dispersion between these assets.
Yeah, so Jay, what we're talking about here is crypto or Bitcoin as alpha, right? Uncorrelated assets and also returns. So directionally, tell me, right, if this tariff situation globally, right, doesn't resolve itself, drags on, or fingers crossed, gets worse, right? We can probably expect stocks to take a further leg down, bonds to go down to $2 as well, and for crypto and Bitcoin to continue going up. Would that be fair?
We would think over the long term, if this is the trajectory of kind of greater uncertainty around the world, that things like gold and things like Bitcoin should continue to go up. It is this type of uncertainty where people are looking for alternatives, parts of their portfolio that are going to behave separately from stocks and bonds. We've seen it in the flows. We've seen it in how investors are positioning. We've seen significant inflows into gold ETFs. We've seen significant inflows into Bitcoin. And this is all because people are looking for those assets that will behave differently.
So let me ask you, right? I mean, it'd be easy to sort of pin it on the president and the trade war, right? But this whole diversification away from traditional assets and into things like gold and also like crypto, right? Probably began 3-4 years ago, did it not? Or at least 2-3 years ago, right? Because a lot of people pinpoint Russia's most recent invasion of Ukraine and, how $300 billion worth of Russian central bank money got seized and is sitting somewhere in Belgium right now as a trigger for countries like China, say, to stop recycling their surplus into treasuries, or not as much, and more into things like gold and into crypto. I mean, that's fair, right?
Well, if you look at a few things, one is if you look at central banks around the world, a continued movement towards diversification beyond just holding dollars is something that's been happening for decades. So the switch from just holding dollars to holding gold to looking at other types of assets like Bitcoin is a trend that's been years in the making. I think if you take a step back, at BlackRock in 2023, we released our new framework for thematic investing called Mega Forces. And that was the first time we really identified geopolitical fragmentation as a mega force that is driving the world forward over the next several decades. This is materializing in a lot of different ways. It is geopolitical risk between countries. It is materializing in policies like reshoring in the United States. And I think directly related to that geopolitical fragmentation megaforce has been the rise of things like Bitcoin, as people see more destabilization in geopolitics, resulting in the need for more alternative assets.
In other words, although we might see a increased speed in the decoupling, and we could argue that this is now the great decoupling, we've been decoupling for years when it comes to crypto, as institutions and other countries aim to get away from the US dollar, as well as institutional adoption through these ETFs and major players like BlackRock now supporting the underlying space. All of the stars have aligned. And so much of this money is now going to flow into crypto, even if stocks probably continue to get hammered. Now, I'm not saying that crypto won't go down a few days also with it. What I'm saying is they're going to continue to diverge over a sustained period of time as one asset class grows and the others fail to get the majority of those same dollars, which should lead XRP bare bones minimum into some new all-time high territory, and in the long run into some price targets that are going to be very hard to predict. But luckily, if you're a subscriber to this channel, we will likely still be making videos by that point in time to help guide you along the way. Now, in a recent interview that we actually shared on a prior video, the president of Ripple, Monica Long, did share some really interesting things on a short interview with Arjun Karpal from CNBC's Beyond the Valley. And in a tweet shortly thereafter, she did talk about how it's only been 2 weeks since the acquisition of Hidden Road, which is that prime broker that they bought for $1.25 billion. One of the biggest, if not the biggest, purchase of any company in all of crypto and digital assets. That said, they basically stated, or she stated, that they've grown their payments network brick by brick through building exceptional liquidity management expertise. In other words, they have some of the best and smartest players in the game. Why? Because they can afford it. They're a very profitable company. Their largest asset being XRP. True last mile payouts and owning the flow to end with 60 plus licenses globally. In other words, they can do anything and everything in the financial and digital asset space using XRP and RLUSD, their stablecoin, alongside other digital assets. So they're going to offer all sorts of services through this prime broker that clears $3 trillion per year. She said she's incredibly excited for what's to come through their pairing of the prime brokerage services, post-trade settlement, and using it all on the XRP ledger. Again, a lot of this value is likely going to find its way into the XRP token and arguably just pump the price because there's going to be a lot of institutions with their eyes on what's going to happen. And again, when everyone FOMOs, prices tend to skyrocket. Again, if there is a low amount of the supply available because so much of it is being used or desired by institutional players, then yes, price is going to skyrocket. And they're going to offer enterprise grade custody. She's basically stating that 2025 is shaping up to be the best year yet. And I totally agree. I do believe XRP is likely going to pump for some new all-time highs as the market continues to decouple, as Bitcoin continues to trend to the upside, as bulls become more bullish, and we see some positive developments on the regulation side inside of the United States. And finally, if you haven't already, head on over to bullrunners.com to check out Altcoin Pro University. This is your one-stop shop to becoming a crypto millionaire. We offer all the right tools, training, and resources to help you reach your goals. Again, I can never guarantee any one result. If your goal is to make a lot of money in crypto, then we have the right tools and resources for you. Whether it's classes and courses, whether it's online live trainings with people like me in the back end where I do a live technical analysis call every single week and explain to you the basics and even help you to become a pro on the charts. Whether you're looking to put your crypto to work in DeFi yields, build out your portfolio in terms of airdrops, get altcoin picks from our pro team of researchers and analysts. Whatever the case may be, this is the best platform on planet Earth for that situation in case. And finally, if you're looking for a place to actually trade, whether you want to go long or short or get access to some futures trades, or even copy trade some of the best traders on this platform, then click the very first link in our description or bio to check out Blowfin, create an account. And by the way, if you deposit up to $50,000, then you're going to get a $5,000 futures bonus. In other words, this is free cash that you can trade on this futures exchange. If you do a certain amount of volume, there are all sorts of other bonuses, but this is a great platform to check out. Anywho, that's it for the video, folks. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe. And also, thank you so much for watching the video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Goodbye.